This episode is brought to you by NVhemp.com. So let's talk CBD for a minute. It's been in the news a lot these days, and all the pros seem to be using it. But what is it exactly? Short for cannabidiol, CBD is a chemical compound from the cannabis plant. It's a naturally occurring substance that's used in products like oils and roll-ons to impart a feeling of relaxation and calm. Now, it doesn't get you stoned, but it has many organic rejuvenating effects. One of my favorite brands is this Enveed, which is a great company, and we've had the owner on the podcast, friend of the show. Their CBD products come in 3 varieties: Relief, Clarity, and Relax. Relief CBD products help relieve pain. The Clarity allows you to focus on those critical shots, and the Relax CBD products are those for the anxious golf moments. Now, I would not endorse any product that I didn't use personally, and I can tell you that I've been testing this stuff out for about 3 weeks now, and is a true game changer. I take a drop of Relax right before I go to bed. That has helped me get some of the best sleep that I've had in years, which has always been a problem for me. I also take a drop of the Clarity in the morning to get me started for the day, which gives me an alertness and a focus that I've never experienced. I also use the roll-on for some sore muscles and joints after a run or a workout. So this stuff is no joke. And right now I've got an incredible special offer for you, listeners. Go to NVhemp.com. That's ENVEED hemp.com, and use the promo code GURU20, GURU20, for a 20% discount for life. So once again, use the promo code GURU20 for a 20% discount for life. Go check it out. So now let's get to this week's episode.
It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
You know how to cut to the core of me, Baxter. You're so wise. But like a miniature Buddha covered in hair.
I want to become a guru so girls will like me. Then I will like myself.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules. Rule number 1. No touching of the hair or face.
Of course.
And that's it! Now let's do this!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Golf Guru Show. I am your host, Jason Sutton, and I am the Guru. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast, and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get all the updates on the upcoming shows when they come out. My guest today is one of the best coaches and also one of the nicest human beings on the planet, Mr. Martin Chuck. A little background on Martin. He is a Golf Magazine Top 100 instructor and originally from Ontario, Canada, where he learned the game from legends such as George Knudson and Mo Norman. Martin is the owner of the Tour Striker Training Aid Company and the Director of Instruction at the Tour Striker Golf Academy at the Raven Golf Club in Phoenix, Arizona. He is also a member of the Revolution Golf Instructional Team, which is a pretty big deal as well. In this wide-ranging conversation, we dig into a variety of topics, from coaching and teaching to public speaking tips that you don't want to miss. As I always say, Martin has one of the greatest voices in golf instruction, which you're going to enjoy listening to for over an hour, to life lessons that you don't want to miss, as Martin is such a great role model for all professionals and someone that I've always looked up to and respected, and I'm grateful to call him my friend. So without further delay, let's get to this awesome conversation with Mr. Martin Chuck. Enjoy. All right, Martin, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, Jason, it's great, man. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, taking the time out of your busy schedule. I'm excited to catch up and see what you've been up to. Obviously, known you for many years and big fan of your work.
Well, thank you.
And yeah, absolutely. So there's so many questions that I have for you, but I want to start from the beginning with one of your mentors slash maybe the greatest influence in your career in teaching. Talk about George Knudson a little bit. I think first explain to the listeners, especially the younger listeners out there, who George Knudson is, and then what he meant to your career, and any just backstories on his influence?
Yeah, it's he was Canada's greatest golfer. Arguably, like Mike Weir could be considered that now. Mike's a good dear friend of mine. We played a lot of golf together as juniors growing up, and it's great to see Mike's success. But prior to Mike, there was some very good players, but George Knudson was the cream of the crop. He won 8 times on the PGA Tour. He was one shot. He lost the Masters by a shot to another friend of mine, George Archer, in the 1967 Masters. He was a great guy, family man, and he also decided to start a junior golf academy, which fortunately, it's always good luck when you're, a young guy, when somebody cool is going to do something like that, right?
Absolutely.
And I was a keener, and I love golf, and when I heard that, it was like everything I could do to somehow get into that program. And, with good fortune and a little bit of attitude and hard work, I got in there, and it was so cool to be around this guy, because he was just he had an aura of coolness. He was a good dresser. He was an amazing ball striker. It was like, wow. And it was just neat. So he would do his adult clinics. He was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and way up there, the mosquitoes are bigger than people. And and then he played the tour for a number of years. His favorite player and mentor was the great Ben Hogan. So it was pretty cool to hear some of the Hogan stories he'd have. And Hogan actually would let George hang around him, and they'd play a little bit together. And he had some good advice for George Knudson. And so as a kid, to listen intently to what George Knudson said, that was just awesome to me. And he would spend the mornings of every day working with the junior golf academy kids. And there's about 12 of us that made this program. And he was into the diehards. Like if you were invested, he was invested back. Like it wasn't like a babysitting. You were a kid, you were into it. He was
right,
into
it was
it.
Serious.
Yeah, serious, and we were all into it, and we appreciated what we had. And so every morning we'd have coaching from him on Monday through Friday, and then we'd have a lunch break, and then we'd go play golf in the afternoon or have some odd job around the club. Like we'd fill divots, repair ball marks, do certain weeding, rake some bunkers. We did all kinds of stuff around the golf club. That golf club was called the National Golf Club of Canada, which is to this day still my favorite golf course in the world. It's phenomenal.
How old were you at this point?
I was 12.
Okay,
12.
so just how long had you been playing before you met George?
I'd say seriously about 2 years. 2 summers of I love this game. But in Canada, 2 summers of I love this game is like 3-4 months, right? Because most
I was
of
going
the
to say
time,
it's pretty short, right?
yeah. I had hockey skates on, and
I was going to say you were a hockey player to start, right?
I was, my whole family, and then my dad got into golf late, and then I got in because I enjoyed being with him, and he liked it, so I took it up a bit with him, and he gave me the usual, hey, keep your head down, those kind of tips, right? I'll never forget my first lesson with George. He looked at me and he said, "Did your father tell you to keep your head down?" And I said, "Yeah. It's the magic elixir of all good golf." And he's like, "No, we got to fix that, right?" And so, no, it was fun. He was great, and he inspired his kids to work hard. And looking back, the information was solid. Now that I've been teaching myself for 34 years, which is crazy.
Wow.
Would I have organized the information a little differently? I think so. And we can get into that too. But
yeah, absolutely.
I got nothing but praise and kudos for George Knudson, and he's just a great guy. And I think most of the kids that came out of there, got scholarships to play in the U.S., which was a big deal when you're from Toronto.
Yeah, one of my favorite books, old school. I mean, call it old school just because the date, but I agree. I mean, the information still stands the test of time. Is his, was it Natural Swing?
Yeah.
Book. It was. I mean, I still one of my favorites in my library.
Yeah, no, it's a classic. I'm amazed how many people reach out to me now and say, "Hey, I just found that book."
Right.
That book came to print, I want to say, in '86 or '85, maybe. I'm not sure, but a long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So any cool stories that you can remember back in those early days when you were working with him that maybe ignited your passion even more to play, and then kind of get into how you got into teaching as well?
So this is So it's funny how, we have students and, or clients, right? You have both. You have people that pay you money to come see you, and they want the fairy dust and the pixie dust, right? But when you have a junior golf academy and you're doing it for free, and the kids are there on their best behavior because they know that this deal is special, and
Right.
they're not paying for it, and they're lucky to be there, right? So literally, if you were 1 minute late, 1 minute, you weren't a part of the morning group. So, and
like
no
it. I like
excuses,
that.
like a goose egg, none. It didn't matter if your dad got stopped at 5 red lights driving you to the golf course, if whatever, if the dog pooped on the floor in the living room, you had to clean it up. If you were 1 minute late, you weren't a part of the day. That was just the thing. So he was big on being on time, which I can really appreciate because,
Sure.
that was a big deal. And then one time we were doing a playing lesson, and the National is a really, really challenging golf course. I mean, in particular, the 17th hole might be, if you're a bad human being, you might have to go play the 17th hole the rest of your life. It's 470. There's a lake on the right. It's a tight fairway. There's trees on the left. And for whatever reason, George liked to hit a draw down the right-hand side, kind of started at the lake and draw it back into the fairway. More sissies would probably start it down the tree line and maybe fade it, because anyway, he hit this draw. And so on the 16th hole, pretty straightaway par 4. It was probably the only sort of layup on the back nine as far as challenge. And it wasn't really a layup because the green itself was tough. But George would purposely tee it up on 16 and practice his 17th tee shot. So he would stand on 16 and aim it down the right side, kind of at a fairway bunker, and carve it back into play. And if he liked that one, that's what he'd go with on the next tee. So it's funny, like looking back on it, he had a couple critical shots. Like if he would have mishit the shot on 16, it's not the biggest deal because it's a fairway bunker, it's a 9-iron, the lip wasn't that penal, and he'd be fine. But it gave him a sense of, was he ready for this really important pivotal tee shot on the next hole? So that was kind of fun.
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
I bet the playing lessons were just off the charts, just watching him hit it.
Well, yeah.
Even in those days.
So the 18th hole is another one. Like it's a par 4 now, but back then it was a par 5. Same tee, same green. Now ball goes so far. I mean, it's comical, right? How far these kids are hitting it. I gave
Sure.
a lesson today to a kid who just could bomb it. And so he hit a perfect drive out there, and he had about 220 into this hole. And, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe he's going to pull the head cover off the 5 wood because it's uphill 220, pretty good uphill. So probably played like 245. And then he back in the day, he used to play Titleist clubs. He pulled his Titleist 2-iron out, and he proceeded to kind of belt a stinger that, landed 40 yards short of the green and just kind of ran right up the hill between the bunkers into the middle of the green. Ho-hum, 2-putt birdie, thank you, right? And so being introduced to that kind of creativity, as a young guy, realizing that, okay, you don't have to hit every ball just straight, and doesn't, you can play it down and tumble it onto the green, you can carve it, you can, and to watch him see shapes like that and see trajectories and be exposed to that as a young man, that was really cool. That was special.
So you spent some time with Mo as well, right? Mo
Yeah,
Norman?
Mo Norman. For the listeners out there that aren't familiar, most everybody that knows golf watching your show over the years probably heard of Mo Norman because
Sure.
his legend is it's there, and he deserves to be. He really does. My
Absolutely.
first meeting with him was this random situation in a grill room at a golf club. He had like carte blanche at this, I'd say, semi-muni course north of Toronto, and it was like a middle of the road golf course owned by a PGA member, and Mo didn't own a home. Mo just stayed in apartments. He just stayed in hotels every night. So Mo could go to this place and he could practice all he wanted. And he could also go in the clubhouse and walk right in the kitchen. Well, the kitchen gal, whoever was making lunch that day, that when I was in there, it just lost it on Mo, because Mo went in and was trying to make a sandwich or something. She was busy, and out of the kitchen comes Mo Norman, who I'd never met before. Okay, and here's this guy who's got like disheveled hair, stocky, probably 5'8", 5'9". He's got long pants on. It's hot outside. He's got a turtleneck on. He looks so out of place. It's crazy. And then this lady's like shooing him out of the kitchen, like she's not happy with him, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm thinking to myself, who is this guy coming out? Like, what is going on here? Well, the guy running the golf school, this little golf camp thing I was at, he goes to me, "That's Mo Norman. He's the greatest ball striker who's ever lived." And I'm thinking to myself, come on, this guy
Right.
just got shoot out of a kitchen, and he's the best ball striker. I'm like, yeah, right. So the camp's a sleepover camp. It's a Monday through Friday. This probably happened on the Tuesday, something like that. And I'm going back in time 40 years now, right? And so
Yeah.
on Friday, the parents come pick you up. And so I'm there with my cousin. My dad's coming to get me. My uncle's coming up there. It's like a 45, 50-minute drive north of where we lived in Toronto. And it's not too far from where Liam Mucklow lives, actually. So up the road, my parents come, my dad and my uncle drive up. The coach who's coaching us that week says, "Hey, got a special treat. Mo Norman's going to hit balls for you." And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we'll see what this is all about. And so where we hit balls, the range was like a big old cart drive away. It was like a 5 or 6 holes across the course. You had to take a gas bumbling old Harley Davidson to get there. So the guy decided we're just going to hit balls on the first tee. So we go to the front of the first tee. Mo Norman's got a shag bag there. It's late in the day. There's nobody really playing. But for some reason, the guy says to me, he says, "Hey, do me a favor. Go down there about 100 yards. When the balls come to you, put them in the bag. And then don't worry, I'll call you back and you can watch Mo." And I'm thinking, fine, I'll go down there. So I'm standing there and I can kind of hear the odd thing. And I can see Mo raising his arms and looking like he's demonstrating some stuff. And next thing you know, I can see him kind of look at me, and then he addresses the ball. He hits a shot. And literally it comes right at me and it lands right in front of me. And I'm thinking I'm going to be running around like like a first baseman trying to shag balls, right? So I'm literally not taking 2 steps to my right, 2 steps to my left, back, and I'm basically going to sat in a chair and put these things in this little shag bag.
Oh my
so,
gosh.
I mean, it was a perfect day. There was no weather, and these balls are just coming right at me, landing right in front of me. And if I would have had a baseball glove, I could have caught them easy, so that was no big deal. So 10 balls in, they're all right there. I put them in the bag. I get a whistle. I come back. Now Mo pulls 7-iron. Some other kid runs out, and he hits a ball.
How does he know how far it is? That's the thing. Like, it's before rangefinders, right?
Oh no, there's no rangefinder, bud.
Yeah,
And
I know.
Mo
That's what makes it even more impressive.
Oh no, yeah, no. Mo knew exactly. He could take a look. He could pull a club, and he could drop it on a dime. And I'm telling you what, it was the first time I'd never seen. At that point, I hadn't seen a tour player hit a golf ball. Okay. So when Mo hit 7-iron, he was still relatively young then. He was, fairly fast. I mean, he wasn't like Nicklaus fast or anything like that, or Tom Watson fast, but he was fast. And so he hit a shot. But the thing about it was the sound. Like, my dad didn't sound like that. My uncle didn't sound like that. Nobody sounded like that, right? And the ball was just so nicely struck. And the divots were, like he coined the expression, bacon strips, not pork chops. Like the divots were thin and very much, similar in depth and look, and he would just he could sign his name with his divot pattern.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and so then it was I'm in awe watching this, and then I finally realized the guy wasn't lying to me when he said this is the best ball striker. And so from that point, anytime Mo was around, and Mo hung around another neighborhood in Toronto too, that oddly enough, one of the members at the National owned a driving range practice center, and that's where Mo sort of made most of his money when he wasn't playing in Canadian Tour events, because he'd go to the range and he'd hit balls all day long, and he'd have his hat out, and while he practiced, people would stop, watch for half an hour, 20 minutes, and drop $5 or $10 in the hat.
Oh
and
my
that's
gosh.
basically how Mo made a living, other than beating everybody when there was a tournament to play in. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, there's so many great stories, that I've heard about him, and because he was a quirky guy, right? He had some issues.
Yeah.
I mean, talk a little bit about that, and then any. I'm sure a lot of people listening have heard some of the legendary stories where. I mean, some that come to mind are when that somebody tells him it's a driver and a wedge, and he hits a wedge off the tee, and then hits driver to a foot. Just crazy stuff like that. I mean,
it wasn't so much like, if say it was a driver wedge hole, right? He wouldn't hit driver on the end of the green. He might hit forward. He might hit 9-iron forward, right? Because the driver's a bit much, but he did that quite a bit. And then he used to joke. He said when he played 36 holes, his only concern was hitting it in the divot from the earlier round,
Yeah.
right? And then there's a true story that confirmed by George Knudsen, because George was a great ball striker too. They would play $25 pins. So every time you and I would go play, like you and I get around the golf course just fine, and we're hitting OKT balls and hitting shots into the green. Well, they're having a wager that who can hit the pin that day.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And so the story goes, and this is Mo saying it, and George didn't confirm it, but I know they had to bet. But Mo said George hit 3 pins in a row one round of golf in a wagering game that they had, which to me is nuts, but we'll just say we'll go with it. I wish George was around to ask him that one, but they were both amazing. And it just, I look back and I'm so lucky to be around those guys, Yeah, some kid, in Toronto, but I guess there's always, like, you've had influences like that, special ones that help create, what you've done in golf to this day. And, and I look back and people are like, wow, you got to spend time around George Knudsen for those years. And then I worked for him. I was an assistant to him when I turned 16. He opened his own range. He broke away from the golf course. He started a private practice center, which was basically you had to be a member of the driving range. You paid, it was a fairly nominal fee, like $300 a year, and then you got to go practice at the range and buy balls at the range. But you couldn't just drive in off the street. So if you paid your $300, you went through kind of a brief course on George's philosophy, and then also it allowed guys like myself, David Moreland, Brennan Little, guys that you probably know or heard of that were a part of that program. And we worked there, and we'd give balls out, and when we had idle time, we'd walk the range, and we'd say, hi, ma'am, hi, mister, are you having any problems, or what can we help you with? And then, so that was our kind of entry into teaching, right? Not as a paid professional, but as just a range helper who was, he said, if you see this, say that. And so the basic stuff, we could help give people a bit of guidance, and that was my entry into teaching golf.
Yeah, so summarize that a little bit as far as what do you remember about his philosophy and what has sort of stuck with you today that maybe you use or you go to? I mean, obviously, I think it's really important for us to have stories, be it because we're storytellers, definitely when we're trying to get our students to buy into things that we're trying to get them to do. So what are some of the things that have stuck with you over the years?
Oh, so much. I mean, my golf school, I bet you, is, so every week in Phoenix from the end of October through first week of May, excluding holidays, there's a golf school. And the school, is really like homage to George Knudsen, because the language he used was, to me, really clear, simple. He'd always say, connect the starting form to a finishing form. Words like rotate and relocate. Never do anything in the expense of balance. Structure is a word he used to talk about, not stiffness, but he'd choose certain words that naturally I adopted that, I like to think in some way I keep it alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And the
structure's
stories,
a big one. Now we still use.
Right? So and maybe others used it, but it was one of those things where as a kid, it wasn't about, okay, keep your left arm stiff. It was let's stay structured in our backswing, and let's feel like we're swinging the momentum of the club from the starting form to the finishing form. So he wasn't a guy who focused on impact. He didn't want to see a video of impact. He didn't want to look at a picture of impact. He wanted people to feel like they had the weight of the club in their hands. You were never allowed to ground the club ever. Okay, and he'd say, you can't tell that I'm not grounding the club, but you're not allowed to ground it, because you should always be able to slide a business card underneath the golf club.
Huh.
And then
because of tension reasons,
more so because of structure. Because he said,
gotcha.
he said there's always appropriate tension too. So appropriate tension would be, if you get a bigger guy or some ladies, if you're sort of barrel chested, it's more comfortable for your arms to be kind of to your sides with your elbows mildly bent. And now that person might bend over to the ball, and they don't have the appropriate radius from how they hold the club to the bottom, to where that club might be on the ground, right? So somewhere during that motion of swinging in the 1.2 second event of a swing on a golf club, they've got to sort out a radius that really isn't set up for their success. So George would say, okay, let's get your arms, feel like they're sort of, elbows are sort of close together. A lady's anatomy, lead arm would be kind of up on top, trail arm would be a little to the side. With men, it would be the same way. So there was you remember the image in Ben Hogan's The 5 Modern Fundamentals, written in the 50s, right?
Right.
Where Ben Hogan had the bandage around his arms.
Right. I was going to ask. That's probably an influence that he got from Mr.
Sure.
Hogan. Yeah.
So having that radius was paramount to George, was swinging the weight of the club without touching anything. So he wasn't about hitting the ground. He wasn't about hitting down on it. He goes, divots are just going to happen. He said, trying to think, his power was always in how quickly he could get his weight to his finishing form, right? I don't say that so much, but I'm just kind of giving you the generalities.
Getting pressure left is, it stood the test of time, right?
Right, and now we have things to measure it, and we watch, Body Track or different devices to do that, and it's great, and I think, and you use a lot of technology too. Right. I use it sparingly to support my arguments, and that's about it. Right? I'd way rather see somebody outside swinging a club, figuring stuff out, using their own internal dialogue to make their message to themselves meaningful. And with me, if I can just kind of bump them back into the lane a little bit here and there, that's all I'm really trying to do, is kind of bump them back into the lane. Every once in a while, you got to take somebody from the wrong lane completely and pop them on the right freeway. Don't get me wrong, but if I can just bump somebody back into the lane and let them take ownership of their own ideas, and then to me, that golfer owns it, and they'll be better off.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into technology. I was going to ask, because I know you're a big TrackMan guy like myself, Body Track. Did I see that you're using gears a little bit now as well?
Yeah, I've had gears for 5 years, 6 years now.
In your indoor studio.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do you integrate that into your lessons? Is it more of a long-term student that that you're going to have time to sort of measure them, or is it a better player? Or sort of give me a picture of how you would integrate that into a lesson.
I probably use it as simply and as, if Michael Neff was listening right now, that's the guy who owns Gears for Golf and Gears Golf, but basically, as a new student comes to see me, I'll have him hit a few golf balls on TrackMan outside. I don't put an aim stick down. I just listen, I watch, I take a couple random videos. Before I say a word, they walk into the studio, they grab a 7-iron that's marked up that, the club sort of fits them. I take an eyeball at their speed. I may give them a regular shaft or a stiff shaft or whatever.
Right.
Excuse me. And then I will take a, indoor studio video with gears in live camera. And so that's, to me, their thumbprint. Like, I haven't said a word to them. And it only takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. And I'll say, tell me if you have any, bionic parts, or what part of your body hurts, or because I naturally want to know if they've got some physical limitation I have to coach around. And the cool thing about gears, I won't put them in the suit. I'll just have them swing the marked club, because you can't argue what the club is doing in 3D space. You cannot argue. All it is a club traveling through a room. And, once you make a change, whether that person kind of pulls the handle, gets the, shaft vertical and has to figure it out on the way down. When you start doing a bit of work, now you come back into the room maybe half an hour later, one more swing. And as you know, you can take that, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the graphic of the first swing, overlay it on the second swing.
Right.
And then you can see the phase change, the pitch of the shaft change. And instantly, it's like, wow, right? Like, because video, you can sort of see it, but in gears, you can't argue. It's amazing.
That's a great point. So you're just using the club feature
most of the time. Most of the time. Like
the body takes a little more time to probably set up as well, right?
I used to do it with everybody. Like every student, like a 12-person golf school, like I was pretty good at getting people in and out of the suit and getting a couple good captures, and then pretty soon, people get so worked up about some of the minutia of the numbers that, again, it's a stick in a ball game, right? Literally, we stand to the side of the target line and we whack a thing on the ground with a stick, so a really good player that is working on something intricate that they really have a deep understanding of, and I'm not going to take them down a rabbit hole. That guy, I'll put the suit on, and that's great. But to me, there's no better, no better piece of tech to show somebody before and after, quickly with 3D club motion. It's like mind-boggling. Where'd you hit it on the face? How's the shaft pitch? Oh, and by the way, you can see if you hit it fat, you hit it thin, the toes down, the heel's down. There's not enough lean. There's too much lean. The handle's high. The handle's low. I mean, in video, as a guy has taught as long as you have, you've got a good eye for that.
Right.
But they don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you got to show them what to look at.
Yeah. So now they can now you can take their 3D club picture and you can kind of put their video beside it and go, okay, look at how nice this looks. And they might say, well, man, I'm not hitting it much better yet. I go, I know, but you're trending, right? Let's keep trending, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's cool because now you basically got club in space data, and then you got impact data with TrackMan. I mean, pretty decent baseline and a little bit of video, and off you go.
Yeah. And I didn't mention I use TrackMan and I use Foresight. And TrackMan's outside always, Foresight's inside. And and again, it's so funny. People that come to the golf school, very few really know how far they hit their clubs. Like,
right.
I don't have to tell you. Like a tour player has he knows to the yard of what he needs to do to hit it 170 to carry a bunker lip. I mean, he knows, or she knows. Like a tour player might hit 8-iron, right? Because they're warmed up. It's warm outside. They know exactly how to hit it 170. A club level golfer has no idea how to make it go 170. It might fly 140 and tumble 10 yards and go into the bunker, right?
Yeah, and they always think they hit it farther than they do because they're not really bringing in carry distance. They just see total or how much roll. So yeah, carry distance is a big deal, and I think that's where TrackMan is so helpful.
Oh yeah, you know it. So many funny stories over the years of people that look at me sideways when I say, well, your 7-iron goes 125. And they look at me like, no, it doesn't. It's my 150 club. And I'll say, well, if it lands on the sprinkler head, it might get to 150. But when you swing at 70 miles an hour, it's your 125 club. And the quicker you're okay with that, the better golf you'll play.
Exactly. Why do I always come up short? It's like nobody hits enough club nowadays.
Right. I know. It's so funny.
That's great. And you use body track as well, right? So how often do you, and what's the scenario that you would put somebody on body track? Because I use it quite a bit as well.
Yeah, no, I love body track. I'm excited about the new JC. I use JC video too in my studio, so now it's gonna kind of all mesh in. I'm pumped to see that come out soon. And so, if I have an obvious, like let's say, for example, for the listeners out there, the typical student I'm going to see at my golf school is going to be somebody who's about 60 to 65 years old, some as old as 90, and the occasional young guy who's like 35, but usually the 35-year-olds are too busy working and having kids. So my people that come see me usually have a little bit more time and gratefully have a few dollars. And so those folks that come to the school, if somebody's got the weak left hand and the face is open on the way down, they're going to hit it way to the right. So what they figure out how to do is to kind of hang back, stall, and flip the face over to kind of make the ball playable, right?
Yeah.
So naturally, if we see that, we have to create a compelling argument to prove it to that person, so that person will take you seriously, so they will in fact make a change. So what's funny about technology to me is just it's my backup. It's how I win an argument. And I'm not trying to win arguments, I'm joking, but when you can show somebody a compelling reason to make a change, and then they say, okay, well, let's modify that grip a little bit so that you don't have to bow the wrist like Matthew Wolff has to get the face on the wall.
Right.
Then now all of a sudden they go, hey, wait a minute, I can have a bit more pressure left, and I can unwind a bit more, and the ball's not going to squirt right. And so now they're starting to buy into what you're telling them. And like body track to me might be 3 or 4 swings, like right when I meet them the first little while, and then maybe a bit the second day, or not, because maybe they'll start hitting it good, and then I don't even use it again.
Sure.
Right? So, again, to me, the technology is, I use it when I think I need to support the situation, and then after that, it's just about, let's watch ball flight. How does it feel? What does it sound like? What's happening to the ground? Where's it going? How's it curving? Right? So
yeah,
that's kind of how I use it.
Yeah, I think that's great. So one of the questions I had, and this is kind of leads us down some of the roads that we can kind of go into the coaching piece and teaching is, what's the best or biggest thing that you've learned like in the last 5 to 10 years that maybe has changed the way you teach today? I mean, I know I've learned a ton of stuff, from like our friend John Sinclair about wrist angles and what's actually happening with 3D. Anything that kind of comes to mind that maybe you look back 5 years ago and go, I was probably not quite giving the accurate information, and now this is what I'm teaching.
I'd say so when George passed away in 1989, okay, so it's funny the journey I went on, right? It was like, okay, swing the club, and I would say my game and the way I was taught, I was a very good full swing guy. Like if I had a driver, I was a very good driver of the golf ball as a young man. I'm not a very good driver anymore. I hit it okay, but when I was a kid, I could thump it pretty straight. It was like, oh yeah, tight fairway, whatever, thump it out there, go get it. Didn't curve it much, and go found it, and that was good. I didn't realize how important it was to drive it far and straight because I did it, right? So George, we swung the way to the club, we hit shots, he was always a big fan of being in balance, but it was a different era too. It wasn't about trying to fly at 300. I mean, if you flew at 240, it was a long drive. If it went 270, you were a bomber, right?
Yep.
So back when I was a kid, I was really good at swinging the way to the club. I wasn't necessarily very good at mid-range wedges. So I wasn't great from 20 to 70 yards. I didn't know how to kind of manufacture my radius to get the golf ball in the way of a speed required to make it go the required distance of like 20 to 60 yard pitch shots. Okay, some days I was okay, some days I sucked. I got a college scholarship, and honestly, if I was 30 yards in front of a green, sometimes I felt like, if I could kick it on the green, I would. Okay, and then as I developed my awareness, as I got into it, it dug it a little bit more. So why is this such a weakness? I met Peter Croker, the Australian guy, who started to talk a bit more about, push and pressure. And I'm thinking, well, man, that's what George said. I guess I didn't understand it.
Right.
And it's funny how some coaches kind of can maybe give you, kind of make you revisit thoughts and feels. And so then I started to feel like, okay, this is how I can really be reliable pitching a golf ball and have good distance control. And then, like I said, George passed away. And then when I got out of college, I got my Canadian Tour card. I played at New Mexico State, and I wasn't any great college player, but I played okay. And, I got my card to play the Canadian Tour, which was a lot of fun. And, I'm going out there, and I remember feeling like really confident with my game. I'm playing some mini tour golf in Florida, and I'm playing well. Like I feel like I can win. I feel like I can, hit it down there, hit it on the green, and, I'm capable of scoring well. And then I'm like leading this tournament. It's a 36-holer. I'm at PGA, I think it's a PGA National, actually. I couldn't tell you what course it was.
Yeah.
And I stood on like the 16th hole, and I never hit it to the right. I could hook it, but I never hit it right. Like if there was OB right, I never hit it right. And I stand up there, and I'm looking down this pretty simple hole, and I just hit this crazy block that went OB. And I remember like I try to coach my people now to say, okay, write it off, move on, right? But that like rattled me to the core. And so unfortunately that miss, I went on to make double bogey and kind of stumble in and finish third or whatever. But it was that shot that really made me go, come on, dude, what was that? Like why? Like what?
Yeah.
Like I could have hooked it in the left rough and been fine because that was my miss, right? Not something that went right. I didn't have a two-way miss. I had a straight ball or a little draw or a hook, but it didn't go right. And so now I'm a little rattled. I find a coach in Toronto, and you probably heard of him, Mark Evershed. And so Mark Evershed,
absolutely
great guy, golf machine guy. And so, kind of went down that road a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I still have my little yellow book right over here by my desk.
Oh yeah, I got mine too.
Yeah, and so, that book was on my nightstand for 20 years. And I enjoyed a lot of it. Like I really did. I enjoyed some of the, I guess, you flat left wrist, leg pressure point, straight plane line,
right?
Rhythm balanced, so there's a lot of good pieces in there, and I didn't take it verbatim. Like I wasn't like gonna pound my hand on the desk and say you must do it this way, but I really liked a lot of it, so I felt like as a guy, trying to understand the silly game we love is that, okay, I had this guy that was a big swing the club guy, George,
Right.
right? And I segued through this thing into like the golf machine, right? And now it seems like we're kind of flipping around a bit and coming back into more of a swing the club kind of thing that everybody used to do years ago anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you said, Martin, what do you do now that you didn't do, 5 years ago? I would say it's more like 8 or 9 years ago, where I would say, I was very interested in good impact hands. Like I still am a big believer in a good grip. If somebody comes to me and they have a poor grip, I'm not afraid to dig in and
Sure, yeah.
and look them in the eye and say, hey, listen, if you spend a little bit of time on this, you can grip the club nicely, and let's do it nicely because it's not that hard. But apparently 8 out of 10 people can't do it, so it must be hard. So,
yeah.
right?
Right.
And so, I'd say that I've kind of come back to more Knutson than, talking golf machine. And I didn't really even talk it, but my brain, when I look at swings now, I see more softer circles. I see momentum. I see things now that there was a time that I used to look at it and think about, down and out strikes and
Mm-hmm.
flat left wrist and, sustaining the line of compression and those kind of things. And
Accumulators.
yeah, and,
Which
exactly.
is great, yeah.
Right. And it's all got merit. But
Absolutely.
now I just say it like I'm speaking to some guy or gal who's 60, right? And she may play once a month, maybe. And how is she going to have a ton of fun playing, right? Like I had this volleyball coach, and you may use this one. I had this volleyball coach come for a lesson, and I didn't realize it, but he was a high-level volleyball coach. In fact, he coaches my buddy's daughter who's going to play at ASU next year. And this is a guy that, parents pay a lot of money to have a 1 hour specific volleyball lesson, not unlike you or me for golf, right?
Mm-hmm.
Comes up for lessons. And he's got the widest, most separated elbows at a dress. He looks like he's riding a horse with his knees so wide and his arms so apart. And he's a fit dude. He's only like maybe 30 something. And I said to him, I go, okay, what do you do? And he goes, volleyball. I go, okay. I said, well, if you were going to bump past me a volleyball, what would it look like? And then naturally his arms went together.
Yeah.
I said, okay, well now I want you to grip the club and then pretend like you're going to bump past me a volleyball. And he's like, oh, like this? And so naturally his arms went straight in front of, and I'm like, yeah, like that. And so the whole bump pass, like, I don't know anybody really who hasn't at some point bump past a ball to somebody.
Sure.
In volleyball, whether they're high level or played it once on the beach, when they were 16, they kind of know what that looks like.
He was trying to do a set, I guess.
He was, right?
The opposite.
So stealing like little bits like that, right? To just kind of convey the message so that it's a sticky thought. Like, what is a sticky thought for somebody? Like that guy.
Somebody that they have experience doing, right? I mean, I do that all the time with other sports, and a lot of times tennis or whatever, I haven't played a ton, but if you start picking enough professionals that are coaches, like you said, that are in that sport, you start picking things up, and it's easy to relate that to your student.
For sure. I always say, how do you make a living? What sports did you play? I want to know, what they do now and what they did. And
that's right.
That kind of helps me talk to them in a language I think, not certain, but I think will help them the most.
Yeah, and I think what you're describing there with feeling the club head and sort of that style of teaching, sort of that Jim Flick, stuff Nicholas used to talk about back in the day. I've always said, when young coaches or my staff say, how do you teach newer players to intermediate players? That's the first thing I go to is educate the hands, get them to feel what the club's doing, get their arms swinging, right, and then add the body later, right? I mean, I think it's one of the greatest, and that's 80% of probably our clientele, for you doing golf schools and me working with club members, then as the skill level gets, to a higher level, then you might start talking about sequence and adding body pivots and stuff like that. Do you find that to be true in your golf schools?
I do.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Like the school starts with the same shtick every week. Okay. Like I say, everybody gather up. I give them a little tour of the facility, where the studio is, where the restroom is, where the refrigerator is, and then come on out. And I say, hey, Jason, do you juggle? And if you'll say, no, I don't juggle. I say, good, step right up. So then a group of people there, and you're standing there, and you're nervous maybe, and and I'm totally going to give you the needle. I'm going to say, this is how you juggle, and I can juggle, and I say, here you go, you juggle, and you're like, I don't know how to juggle. I say, well, this is exactly how you juggle, and I say, take 2 balls in your right hand, and naturally, if it's a guy, I say, that's a joke in itself, and everybody laughs, right? So then, okay, 2 balls in your right hand, 1 in your left, toss 1 up in the air and catch in your left hand. So 19 out of 20 people can do that. That's just a toss and a catch. So I say, hey, way to go, congratulations, give them a hand. Everybody's kind of laughing, they're wondering what the hell's going on. Then I say, okay, now it's getting interesting. Toss 1 ball up in the air, and then toss the one from your left hand up so the ball goes underneath the one on the right, and catch it, trade the balls in each hand. And so now they're like, huh. And so it goes from 19 out of 20 that can, toss 1 ball and catch it, to 1 in 20 who can toss 1 in the air and toss 1 underneath it, right?
Sure.
So I say to them, I go, okay, you're about to experience golf school. You're bringing us your previous intent, your previous beliefs on how you're going to move a club, and you're giggling now, dropping these balls as I ask you to juggle. But when you go to try to hit a golf ball and it feels a little different and you don't have success immediately, you're probably not going to giggle. You're probably going to be mildly frustrated,
Yeah.
okay? So then I say to the group, I say, this is how I say, I've got you, suckers. I say, you've come to a golf school, and you're all going to be 14 years old right now. And they look at me like, you're crazy. And I am a little crazy, to be honest. Yeah. I say, you're all going to be 14 right now because you're rolling freshmen. You're coming into my high school. And by the way, I have a state championship squad. We've won the last 5 years. This year, it's the best squad we've ever had. You're not going to make the lineup, but I want you to eventually make the team, right? As a coach, we always look at it like, we have to do something for the person paying us, right? Like it's our job to make them better. It's their job to make our team, okay? It's their job to make our team. So I'm going to give you exactly what you need so that you make me look really good. If you work hard, you may make my team. And people look at me like I'm crazy. But I say, listen.
It's such a good analogy, though.
You know what I mean? I want you to make my team. I want you to be good enough to be on the starting 5 to be a state champion golf team. And it's just a funny analogy, right?
Sure. No, it's great.
I just spin it so that they look at it and go, oh, okay. All right. And, the guy cares, and we do. My coaches are awesome. Aaron Olson, Jim Waldron, Mike Brea. And they've been with me for years. And Courtney Mahon's a great one. She's up in Kansas now having babies and stuff.
You got Brian Payton now, right?
BP. Yeah, BP in the wintertime. He's great.
Yeah.
And so this group of coaches is, they're an awesome group, but we want to challenge a golfer. We don't want to break them, but we want to challenge them. And we want to say, hey, I don't care if your performance is where you want it to be at the moment. Just keep working the steps, because if you work the steps, you make the coach happy. If you make the coach happy, guess what? He's going to keep you around. And if you stick around, you might make the team, and so people laugh, and because let's face it, like learning golf, it's a hard game to be good at.
Absolutely.
It's an easy game to play. It's hard to be good at.
And you can't be afraid to tell them that, right? I mean, it's
right.
But getting them into that learning mode, like you do, is so important. So they're not getting frustrated. They're actually understanding. They're building towards something.
No, for sure. And I say, go ahead and hit or miss one. So that's my line. Go ahead and hit or miss one.
I love it.
And they look at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I don't care if you miss, and I don't care if you hit it. I say, go ahead and put a move through this, and let's see how you do. And here are the goals for the drill, and it's not about the result. We'll do some results-based, stuff later, but that's not what it's about at the moment.
That's great. I love it. I've seen you speak so many times, and you use that 14-year-old line at the National Teaching and Coaching Summit this past winter, and I thought that was brilliant. You were talking about playing lessons.
For sure.
And I always tell everybody, I think you've got the greatest voice in golf instruction.
That's funny.
Right? So you're kind of like the golf whisperer. I'm like, I would take a lesson from you and just leave there just having so much. One, I'd be super calm and feel really good about, what I was doing. But one of my questions is, have you had any like presentation training, any public speaking training or anything that you can go to? Or, I mean, I know I was a super awkward person when I got into the business, very introverted, and I had to learn to be more of an extrovert. And, public speaking just terrified me. And now I'm pretty decent at it, but I've had to work at it. Like,
Right.
Tell me about your journey, if any, and any tips and tricks you could give the young coaches out there, because I think it's super important in our business to be a good communicator, but you have to speak in front of groups, right? I mean, if you're going to do golf schools, or I think even one-on-one lessons are a presentation per se. So any insight you could give there?
Yeah, for sure. So the game of golf in itself is how I would say, imagine like a little guy going to the Muni and playing golf, right, at 10 years old, because I did. I loved it. I 9 years old, 10 years old, go to the Muni. And stuff a kid can't do today, by the way, get on a bus by himself and go, 2 miles one way and 3 miles the next.
Right.
And go to this course, walk up to the starter lady and say, I'd like to play. And then she says, hi, dear, how are you? And I say, I'm good, thank you. And okay, we'll fit you in, just go hit some putts. Okay, I'll go hit some putts. And so now here's this little, ankle biter and comes up to 3 men or adults typically. And you say, hi, my name's Marty and nice to meet you. Let's go play, right? And so by that time, I'm whipping around this golf course. It's an executive, and rarely could some adult beat me, because it's just like I knew every blade of grass and I could kind of hit it sort of where I was looking. And so that experience of just talking to adults face to face as a kid, I mean, that's sort of lost nowadays because kids are buried in their device, right? They're looking at their phone. And that's a sad thing. One, they can't take a bus by themselves without the Child Protective Services throwing the parents in the prison.
Right.
And two, they're buried in their device, right? So that communication skill is going to be more of a challenge for the younger kids, I think, and the young coaches. I say kids, but let's just say 20-year-olds.
Right.
But golf, if they play golf, then they're ahead of the game. So that's why I love golf. And then I vividly remember. Okay, so another thing that helped me is I was a band geek. Okay, I played saxophone in the band. And
I did not know that.
So I was a band geek, and I went to band camp, and so
All right.
yeah, and so I playing in front of audiences, and if you have the odd solo, you got to step up, and you got to bring it, right, or you sound terrible. And I didn't want to sound terrible, so even though I was nervous, I overcame that kind of thing. But the speaking thing, to your point, I'll never forget, like my senior presentation in marketing at New Mexico State University. That it was a pretty chill marketing class. Professor was great, and he had this final presentation, and it was worth most of your grade. And you had to, I don't even know what mine was about, okay? But I do remember Dougie, okay? Dougie played on the football team. And you're like, what has Doug got to do with this? So this is what it had to do with this. So I've got my presentation. I swear I cannot remember what it's about. I did have to wear a suit and a tie, which is odd in college, right? Like,
right.
I mean,
yeah,
we had to wear a dress shirt on team trips, but we didn't have to wear a tie or a jacket. So I had to dress up, and that's freaky in its own right. So I go to the thing. I don't know that I slept much that night. I show up, and the professor steps up and he says, okay, Martin Chuck. And I was Marty my whole life until college, because they read your name as it's printed on your birth certificate, Martin Chuck. So I was Martin once I went to college, which is fine, or my nicknames from my different groups of buddies. But so now I get called up there, and I'm like armpit sweat, my brow is shiny. I'm looking up there, and it's like a movie scene where like the thump, the thump, the thump, the thump, my heart's beating. And then I look right in front of me, like the front row, like dozing off, leg outstretched, Doug, okay? Doug couldn't give a rat's hindquarters what I was doing or what I was saying. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking to myself, why am I so worked up right here? Because Doug is about to nod off, okay? And I thought to myself, I'm going to do what I can do to kind of entertain Doug a little bit. And he was a fun guy that I had a couple Red Cup beers with at college parties and stuff. And so now I go into my spiel, and I realize, you know what? Everybody sucks at this. I may as well have a little fun at this. I do my thing, and now Doug's sitting up in his chair, and I'm engaging Doug, looking at him, kind of smiling a bit, looking at other people, looking him in the eye. And then, I got done, and Doug comes up and goes, man, he goes, I fall asleep in these things, and you actually kept me awake. And I thought, that was a great compliment Doug just gave me. Right?
There you
and
go.
I said to Doug, I go, Doug, you know why I did well? I said, I'm looking at you, and you look like you're about to fall asleep. And I said, to hell, I'm going to let you fall asleep in front of me right now. You know what I mean? So it was Doug that inspired me to be a little bit silly, look somebody right in the eye, and just kind of capture them for the moment. And when I'm speaking, and this is what it's kind of funny. Like, I'm always nervous when I have to go speak. I don't care where or when
Sure.
it is. Okay, and it's mild.
Everybody's
but I
going to
kinda
be a little
giggle.
bit.
Absolutely, I kind of giggle
Yeah.
about it a little bit. And then what I'll do is when whatever my subject is, I'll get up and I'll pick up 4 or 5 people. And it'll be 4 or 5 people, maybe one that I know and 3 or 4 I don't. And I will look at them like right in their face until they have to acknowledge me. You know what I mean?
Make eye contact. Yeah.
I will totally make eye contact like a freak
Yep.
almost until they look back at me and sort of acknowledge me. You know what I mean? Because it's just
Yeah.
kind of courteous to do that. You know, either a little nod or just, you know, and like if somebody still pan faced me after a minute, then that might melt
You
me
may
back.
move on, right?
I might move on. But
Yeah.
but the point is, like, when you're speaking, one, if you're passionate about what you're speaking about, like especially golf, that's easy for me because I just love the game. I love
Sure.
the history of the game, every stupid little thing about the game I enjoy. And, you know, and so to talk about golf to people that like golf, I mean, that's like, you know, giving candy to 3-year-olds. And so if you can do it with a little bit of connection, like look them in the eye. And to your point, you made a great point about storytelling. And I got to give credit to my good buddy Andrew Rice, and you know Andrew
Yes.
well.
Oh, yeah.
And Andrew's always like, "Hey man, tell them a story. Give them a story. They
That's right.
they want a story."
Yep.
And they do. Everybody wants a story. So whenever I do these chapter things or section things, I think, okay, what story might somebody enjoy, right? So I might tell a story about fishing in the Ottawa River dangerously on rocks with Mike Weir to try to catch fish, yet we have a tournament the next morning. We got to tee off at 8 a.m. and it's like 7 o'clock, but we're not leaving until we catch one. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
stupid, something that somebody's like, what?
You got to get the
know?
attention grabber right at the beginning, right?
You know what I mean? Or like the Mo Norman stuff, which is some of the crazy stuff. Like, and some of the idiotic things I did as a kid at the golf club, I got in trouble for that. You know, I'm lucky I didn't get kicked out of the club for, right? Just, you don't know. I wasn't very smart and unfortunately did some stupid things and, you know, managed to survive it. And here we are. But no,
Do you remember the topic of that talk in college?
You know, it was marketing, right? So
Yeah.
I honestly can't remember. And somebody asked me, I remember the room. I remember the color of the walls, okay? I remember it was amphitheater, and I remember right where Doug was sitting. And why Doug sat in the front, I got no idea. Because if
Right.
he really wanted to sleep, he would have went to the back.
Yeah.
But he was the reason. I just kind of had a moment to myself of clarity and said, what the, you know what I mean? And just
That's
started
awesome.
having fun with it. And after that, that's how I feel. I feel like, man, you're here. You kind of want to hear what I have to say, and let's have fun for an hour, 2 hours. And some of these section things, and you've done these, I'm
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
You know, I've presented for a day. You know, like
That's
literally
right.
from 9 to noon, lunch break, and then from 1 to 3.
Yeah.
And at 3 o'clock, I'm like, gosh, you know, I could go on about more stuff. You
Yeah.
know, so
Preparation is so important. I think that I always say, you know, the more prepared you are, the less nervous you're going to be, right? If you've
Sure.
worked on it. Do you have any tips on prepping for talks like that? I mean, for me, I usually do a run through depending on how comfortable I am with the material. It's usually, you know, we all have our sort of stock talks about whatever the subject is, but I know I had to do a lot of stuff, and I would talk into the mirror. I would, you know, make sure that my facial expressions were matching the message I wanted to get across. And I love your, you know, idea of picking one person out of the crowd to sort of focus on, and then moving around. That's what one of my mentors, Dana Rader, that you know, one of the greatest speakers that I've ever heard. That was one of her big tips was, you know, eye contact is important, but also, you know, you always pick somebody that sort of starts nodding at you that you think is actually listening.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you usually
yeah.
get drawn to that. Talk about your preparation for a talk.
So, you know, talking about golf to me is pretty easy. So the key for me for a presentation is like, you know, say somebody says, okay, Martin, you have an hour, right? I would say, okay, an hour. I'm going to cut that hour up into a little brief intro, tell a story. That's 10 minutes. And everything to me is one photograph, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's it. So one photograph, that's 10 minutes. The next photograph, like say we're talking risk conditions, right? I might create a photo of DJ, one of Rory, one of, I don't know, somebody in the middle, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And just put that up there.
Yeah.
And so now they're kind of, that slide just may stay there, and that's it, right? And then I'll walk about and I'll talk about it, and I might use my hands to articulate the words I'm saying a bit, and then the next thing might be about footwork, and then so that would be a slide, right? So going through a presentation to me is, I see people try to do too much. They get too busy. It's like they'll put way too many stats up on a screen that people you can't study anyway. But if it's a simple photograph, and maybe the photograph's got like a off color, maybe you kind of put a hue on it, and if you could do that in, like, your phone can do it now by putting on different screens over pictures and stuff. And so you can change up things quite easy to put interest in it. It's just a photograph. And so now somebody looks at a photograph, and that photograph that same one might be up there 10 minutes, right? But now you're kind of walking the stage and talking about it. And you're going to go on because you're interested in risk conditions. And, you talked about John Sinclair. I mean, the mad scientist of, a lot of cool stuff. And,
Absolutely.
And so, he could talk about extension flexion on the radial forever,
yes,
right? It could be a day presentation.
Yeah.
But honestly, you're going to go through stuff like that. And I'd say, one screen is about 10 minutes. And again, it's up to the presenter. Like, I've seen guys do awful jobs at giving presentations. They'll just put like black words on a white screen. But how about a vivid photograph of something cool, right? How about just a picture? Think about Justin Thomas's feet, right? Say you took a picture of the moment where he's like weightless, right? Like his left foot's up off the ground, his right foot's up off the ground.
Yeah.
And you just had that up there. People are going to look at that, and they're going to see that picture a million ways, right? And so now that's a great discussion point for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And I know that seems like a long time to people, but it's not. When you're staring at some guy and you're just kind of walking the room and you're asking questions, you make them kind of, you get that person who's nodding at you, and you just kind of play off them. And I'll tell you one guy that really impressed me as a young pro when I was not good at public speaking was Craig Shankland. Okay, and so Craig, I'll never forget, like Mike Hebron and Craig Shankland were back to back, and I love Mike Hebron, don't get me wrong. And Mike Hebron, I would consider him a mentor and an amazing resource for a lot of the stuff I use.
Absolutely. And
so, but Craig Shankland, compared to Mike Hebron, one was like David Lee Roth, like that would be Craig Shankland, at Van Halen concert, and one was like, that guy who plays the pan flute. Right, so you got Mike Hebron, who's kind of peaceful and serene and just here's the facts, and he's gentle, right, and that's good. But then you have and then you have Shankland, who will literally walk up to you and you're sitting behind your skinny desk at one of those things, grab you by the collar and shake you, right? Like one guy is so intense,
attention grabber,
and one guy is so peaceful. And I think when you're presenting, I think if you kind of go a little bit up and down just to kind of wake people up from time to time.
Right.
So when I saw Shankland, I saw Hebron, I'm like, okay, a blend of those two would be a presentation that would be cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Voice inflection.
Yeah.
Using your obviously body language is huge.
Yeah.
I read this book called Presentations Plus. That was one of my kind of go-tos. A guy named David Peoples, I think, wrote it, and that's one of my go-tos when I'm like preparing. It tells you everything that you need to do to prepare for a speech, and then talking body language is like 75% of what the people are actually going to leave with. The nonverbal cues, as opposed to what you say, they're going to forget 75% of it and remember 25% of it. So you go to your point about pictures and body language. That's super important to having a good presentation, I think.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, if I wasn't lazy, not that I'm lazy, I probably would have read that book, but I'm sure there's lots of good stuff.
There's tons of them out there, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's kind of continue on that with young coaches. I always like to get feedback from my guests, especially guys like you and me that have been doing this for several years. Is we have the opportunity to mentor young coaches now, which is one of my passions, and I know you do as well. What advice do you give the young coaches nowadays to say, how do I get better at teaching? How do I get better at coaching? What's that pathway look like to you? Because it's changed obviously over the years since we were younger.
Right. There's a fancy, like, so I'm on the PGA's coaching and teaching committee, and that's fun. The lesson is, they use an expression, it's a great expression, to not make it transactional but make it relational, right? So you're trying to create friends, you're trying to create a comfortable environment, but you're also holding people accountable. Now with today's technology, and the thing I didn't really mention in my, we talk about technology, is I'm a huge fan of some of these coaching apps now. Like I use Coach Now, there's Skillist, there's a variety of these. And when Spencer Dennis, the original developer of Coach Now, said to me years ago, said, "Hey Martin, can I come show you something?" I said, "Sure, come on up." And that's when I was at Marta's camp, and Brian Pate was, barely, he was teaching. He doesn't teach much now. Now he's become a hell of a teacher. But so Spencer came up, shows me this thing, and I said to him, I go, "What color are you going to buy?" And he looks at me and I go, "What color?" And he looks at me, "What?" I said, "What color Ferrari are you going to buy when you sell this thing?" Because I was so impressed with the fact that you could collect the video, draw a line or two on it if you wanted to, bullet some notes underneath it, and it would go to the cloud and live on their student platform, right? So me as a marketing kind of minded guy, I thought, man, so all my lessons now, I'm going to have a portion of that lesson, the meaningful bits, they're going to get. I don't have to go home and upload videos or do what I used to do, which was like burn them onto an SD card. And oh my gosh, and some poor guy saying, "Hey, I lost my SD card." I'm like, "Well, then you lost your lessons. I apologize." So now, I can drip out stuff to this. I've got like 2,500 people in my Coach Now platform now.
Wow.
And so it's like almost become a marketing platform for me.
Sure.
And then what I also, with training aids, right? So the Tour Striker stuff.
Yeah.
If somebody uses a smart ball and that's what's kind of helping them get over the hump in the lesson, I'll take the link of the smart ball and drop it in the video, right? And so for you young coaches out there, let me help you make some money right now. This is going to be worth waiting for all this stuff leading up to this moment to hear about George and hear about, how Jason and I do a presentation. So young coaches, I want you to basically make your car payment every month doing a simple thing. I want you to affiliate with some good companies, okay? Whether it's Tour Striker or Orange Whip or whoever, doesn't matter. You pick it, okay? Skills, like we're 20%. So now, like let's say you like a smart ball, and a smart ball helps your student figure out how to rotate and extend their body rather than stay down and chicken wing, and that's developing their skill. Well, you give them a meaningful 5 or 10 minute lesson, or a half an hour lesson, but maybe you clip it to a brief video that you put in their training platform. So you got to have one like a Coach Now. And then you drop in a link, and that link is affiliated to you, and all these companies do it to where after a while, guess what? You sell 5 or 6 smart balls a month, and maybe you sell a PlaneMate, maybe you sell a Educator or a Tour Striker. We're going to send you a check for $300 for that 20% of your effort. You know what I mean? So it's like, if somebody will get off their rear end and just be a bit more thoughtful, they can, one, look like a genius, because now that member goes home and goes, "Man, what was that thing I was using that I did so well with? Oh, look, it's right here.
There it is."
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, because we have some guys out there, there's a couple whippersnappers that do really well. And I'm like, and I said, "What are you doing?" And I didn't even think of this. He goes, "Well, every time I give a lesson, I just take the link from that product I use and I drop it in their video." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's genius."
There it is. Yeah. Simple,
right?
But effective.
Totally. And so now that student probably feels obliged to maybe even get it, right?
Yeah. Well, you tell them, if they buy into what you're teaching and you tell them what to work on, that would include a Tour Striker smart ball.
Yeah. And I'm not here to pimp my stuff. I mean, it's just, or whatever, like the Watson hanger or the, Orange Whip, Jimmy Hackenberg stuff, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So.
That's good. And that kind of leads me to, I wanted to get the story on how you got into the training aid business. I'm guessing, and I think maybe I heard you tell this, or you probably told me one time, that you were trying to solve a problem, right? So give us the story about how you developed your business. And obviously you got good business sense, so that's a whole nother subject as well.
Well, I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, but, I've got a great wife who handles a lot of that stuff for me, so I give her a lot of credit, Stacy. But everybody's inventive. Everybody's nature is to be inventive. I think that years ago, I like the swing fan. That fan that was on a baseball bat. And I thought, well, man, that thing's cool. I like swinging it a little bit, and kind of loosens me up, and I feel like I can be a bit faster. Wouldn't it be nice to have one of those that was portable? So I was about 22. I think I might have been on the Canadian, I just graduated New Mexico State, 23, on the Canadian tour, and I thought it sure would be fun to have a pop a fan on a club and just loosen up real fast and, pop it off, put it in the bag. So I kind of made this fan thing that kind of accordioned up, and you could pop it on the club, but I didn't follow through with it. Okay, and then flash forward a few years later, sure enough, somebody had a fan that you could just kind of clip onto a shaft, and I don't think they sell them anymore, because after you have an idea, guess what? You have to figure out how to sell it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I was always playing around with a few things. I was, after my, very, very tarnished playing career of not being that good, I got a club pro job in Palm Desert, California, Indian Roots Country Club. And I basically took a gizmo. I took the paper thing, the coat hangers that hold your pants? Mm-hmm. They've got that paper tube.
Right.
Well, I took one end of the metal out of that tube, and basically bent it enough to where it popped off. And so now I've got a piece of metal sticking out of a paper tube. And then I took a tensor bandage and I would put it on somebody's lead arm or trail arm. Okay, so I've got this homemade gizmo that was massively effective for illustrating what I was trying to show people, educating their hands. Okay, and then sure enough, there was a guy who was a good friend of Lynn Blake's, who had some gizmo that did just that. It was so I started to realize, hey man, if I have these ideas, there's a good chance that, and they're helping my students, why don't I kind of press on forward with these things? Mm-hmm. So, there was a couple of them that I kind of sort of missed out on, but that was fine. And then I'm at my range I went from Palm Desert to Reno, Nevada, to club up in Reno. I had a great time there. And I'm on the range, I'm doing my golf lessons, and this is in the depths of my golfing machine stuff. This is back when I'm on the phone with Brian Manzella like once a week. We're talking about like lag pressure points.
Yeah.
This is 2006, or 2007. And there's a guy on the range, and I used to take a Sharpie, and I would draw a little dot on like the fourth groove, depending on the clubs. And I'd say, okay, I'd say to the student on an 8-iron, I'd say to the student, how are you going to get that Sharpie mark on the back of the ball? And they look at it kind of, quizzically, and I'd say, well, it's a combination of forward lean and downward strike. Mm-hmm. And I'd say the downward strike's sort of built in. The circle of a swing is going to go down. There's plenty of down in every swing. I said the forward lean part's a bit tricky, and there's ways to kind of feel that. And this little Sharpie mark here, I can transfer it to a golf ball, smear up the face a bit. And so that it dawned on me, if I hit a really good shot, I didn't need the bottom couple grooves on the golf club. You kind of do as insurance, but yet if you really hit a good shot, you don't. And so I thought, man, okay, I'm going to, then I had this like light bulb moment that there was a Jerry Barber shankless 7-iron. Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Jerry Barber, this golf club is hysterical looking. For those of you old enough to know what those are, I'm
Crazy
sorry.
looking hosel. And...
Oh, you know it, right? So there was one in my lost and found barrel that I adopted when I got the job, okay? So I'd been in the lost and found barrel for years. I went in the cart barn. I'm looking at it going, And I went to we had a bit of a club repair station and had a grinding wheel. So I started grinding. Well, when you grind off that much, it takes time and it's messy, because I'm grinding away and I'm looking at it, I'm grinding, I'm getting there. So it's like, this is later in the day. It's dark out now. Everybody's gone. I'm still grinding away. I remember like looking up in the mirror by this like janitor sink we had. There's a little mirror there for like an eye wash station. And I had so much like metal dust on me, it looked like I was working in in some mine somewhere. But sure enough, I had this club all kind of whittled down. And the next time that same dude had a lesson, I gave him the club and I said, hey, hit this for me. And he looked at it and he said, I can't hit that. I said, well, you can, watch. And I hit it. And then immediately he had a little epiphany. Like he's like, oh, I see. Right? Like that goofy club made his intent change. Like it totally changed from like hang back scoop to going, oh, I see. The only way I can sort of make it go up is to do something different. And so I go home and I tell my wife, Stacy, I go, Stace, I think I came up with something cool here, because this dude was such a scoopy hang back lifter epic that when I gave him this club, he looked at golf differently and he saw how he could apply loft differently. And she's like, and she was very supportive. She's like, well, cool. Let's, I don't know, dude, you got to get an attorney, get a patent, blah, 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 blah. So we went down that road. And I'll never forget. So 2000, it took a while, right? And every inventor thinks that like there's drones looking over their house to steal their idea. Like everybody, like I was super paranoid about it. I remember like cloak and dagger walking around downtown Reno to this attorney's office, like hiding this club under my jacket because I didn't want anybody to see it. Like they didn't even know what the hell it was.
I love it.
And so, the attorney goes, well, I'll take a look. And sure enough, he says, yeah, I mean, you could probably patent that. And then I got a hold of some club designer who was hysterical. He goes, I've seen everything. There's probably nothing you have that I haven't seen already. Let me save you some money and basically shoot you down right now. Send it to me. I'll take a look. So I sent him an NDA, which he signed, a non-disclosure agreement. And he got it, and he goes, damn, I think you actually have something here.
Okay.
And and he was a critical person that helped. I paid him a design fee, and then he actually designed my logo for me just because he was handy at that. And then he was also the person connected to foundries in China because they don't make a club head in the United States. They assemble them here, but they don't make them here, right? Huh. They're all the foundries are in China. They get shipped over here. They get assembled here. Like even Ping has their heads made over there. And if I'm wrong, I apologize to the Ping folks, but that's how it was back then. And so that's where it started. In 2009, we're at the PGA show. My wife, myself, one of my assistants from. I was now at Tethero Golf Club in Bend, Oregon as a director of golf GM. And there we are with a little 5x5 booth and this one club, and people are walking by going, what do you got? And I'll never forget it. Like, some of the best teachers in the business were going, damn, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, it always happens, right?
And the next thing you know, that we had a run on the things, and it turned into an infomercial, and Gary McCord was a spokesman, and we've sold like 180,000 of the darn things. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
So yeah, no, luck and we learned some lessons, some business failures and some successes, and then once you do something once, the second one's way easier times 10.
Well, you already
right?
You kind of know the ropes, right?
You kind of know the ropes,
yeah.
right? And then
so how did the ideas come to you? Is it like in a lesson? You're like, man, I wish I had something that would do this, or to make the student change, right? Or to, like you said, think about golf differently. Yeah. I mean, solve a problem, right?
So have you seen the white, like the hanger device I have, the white thing?
Yeah.
That pops into the club?
Uh-huh.
So that's an interesting one. Okay, thank you. So, it's got 3 settings, and its basic setting, it's basically like a hanger. Like you can pop it in a club, and the club can hinge it up and down in the plane of the lead arm, and you can hit little pitch shots, and that's about it. Well, a wrist, isn't going to just hinge vertically. It's going to go on a, quite a big motion of horizontal hinging, meaning it's going to go radial, and then it's going to go into flexion for good players. Well, that flexion doesn't work necessarily with a real hanger, or like the Watson hanger is more for vertical up and down, not necessarily a whole lot of horizontal. So when I was farting around with a hanger, I clipped it, and I thought, well, if I could get the golf club to go, comfortably radial, right, not extended and radial. For the listeners, that would be cuppy,
yes.
So if you could just have a left hand go from its, decent left hand grip position, and then, go somewhat radial, which is basically a mild bit of wrist cock. Now, if you had this gizmo in the right place, you could have that horizontal. You could have that bowing that a lot of good players display.
Right.
And the thing would trade sides from starting between your forearms and going to the outside of your forearm. And so, those kind of little epiphanies, I don't know where they come to me. It's one of those things where all I'm trying to do is show somebody, this is hard to teach unless you learn it when you're little. But if you can see it and you can feel it, maybe, just maybe, you can talk yourself into doing it, right? And so that's how those things came about. And then the smart ball, that was the stupidest invention ever.
That's the greatest. That's probably I'd probably use that more than any of your training aids right now, because I think it's simple. And you putting a lanyard on it was brilliant, because now you don't have to chase the ball down the range every.
Well, that led to me. That's the comedy of it, right?
Right.
So the comedy of it was like the impact ball, the yellow and blue ball that I've had for years. I've used with tons of students.
Yep, I used that back in the day.
Of course.
Yeah.
I love it, and I still have one, but it was kind of heavy and it would fall.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, if I got to go chase this damn thing one more time. And then I thought, okay, what do we really need here? Well, we need some sort of thing that is inflatable so that it's easy to travel. You can stick it in like a college player's bag and you don't have to chase it. And that's how I came up with an inflatable ball. What's even goofier is the fact that it got patented. My attorney, how he got this thing patented, I'll never know. Like, he must know the inspector. I haven't a clue. Because I have a utility patent on an inflatable ball that hangs from a lanyard. Which to me doesn't make any sense, but
Right.
it's a patent, right? And to the inventors out there, they're hard to defend sometimes, because if you go on Amazon right now and you type in Martin Chuck, you type in Tour Striker, you type in Smart Ball, you'll see my product there, but you also see a knockoff that you can order from China. Now, for me, it's like, I wouldn't get mad if somebody was knocking off something. It's like, you want to make your own product that mirrors mine, even if it's illegal? Good luck to you, right? But what makes me kind of mad is like a platform like Amazon they act as like an intermediary between somebody selling something illegal to somebody who wants it, right? So you can go buy an illegal product, in essence, through a platform such as eBay or Amazon, and they'll ship it to you. Good luck with customer service, and you might have to wait 3 weeks for it. But, they would not have an audience if it wasn't for those platforms, right? Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't know how to find that knockoff guy. There's no way you'd find it.
No.
The only way you'd find it is if you type in Justin Rose or Martin Chuck or Tour Striker or what's that ball between Justin Rose's arms,
Yeah.
right? And then those people selling the knockoff use those keywords, and and then it shows them, hey, here's a ball, and it basically is the same thing, right? And I'm not, your users are smart people; they'll do what they want to do. And if they're really smart, they'll go make one, with something in their garage, or
A floaty.
maybe they'll buy one of mine. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. You got me on a bit, a little off topic there, but
No, that's okay.
it's amazing
That's an interesting topic, because I'm sure that happens to you all the time, and it's like it's a shame that big companies like that don't have, a stronger gate to keep that out, to where they can't be successful.
They try, to a degree. In fact, it's like there was a big lawsuit a couple years ago, which Amazon was found not guilty. It was basically a pillowcase company that made animal head pillowcases. So this company in the U.S. had some design patent on like a bear pillowcase or a duck pillowcase or these random pillowcases. Well, they sold really well, so naturally some knockoff company overseas started selling them on Amazon. So that company, the local company, decided, I'm going to sue Amazon. Well, Amazon defended, okay, and there was precedence in that defense that Amazon didn't take title, they weren't guilty. All it was an exchange from buyer to seller. Amazon was the intermediary. Well, guess what? Amazon lost a case not too long ago.
Oh.
So Amazon, there's going to be some sympathetic that is going to say, guess what? Okay, Mr. Bezos, you're a genius. Way to go. We all love Amazon. I love Amazon.
Sure.
But, you can't create a marketplace for cheaters, because that's not fair to the guys like me who have spent a lot of time and money. And trust me, there's been some Tour Striker failures too, right? It's not all just roses.
Yeah.
So, it's anyway, that's my bit of frustration for our chat today. But,
Yeah.
Otherwise I can't complain,
So let's pivot into some fun questions here. And speaking of failures, because all successful people have sort of dealt with adversity, which I think makes us great and makes us stronger. Do you have a failure or a roadblock in your life or career that set you up for later success that you can remember and share?
Oh yeah, probably. I think getting my foot wet with products years ago, that was a starter to it. I actually went far enough to meet an industrial designer, realize that there's a neat group of humans out there that are super smart, that know how to, basically make whatever you want made. Now you got to pay them for their skills. So that was kind of cool.
Sure.
Failures. Product-wise, I'd say there's tons of golf failures, but product-wise, and there's tons of student failures, and coaching failures. But like product-wise, I made the Tour Striker training driver about 7-8 years ago, and it was a titanium-headed looking club, and it looked really nice. from the player view, it was a great looking club, and it had a small little impact face, and people liked it. The problem was it was way too expensive for the cost value proposition of buying it. So to land it in the United States, from a manufacturer overseas, was like $70. Well, $70, then if you market it and then you warehouse it and then you sell it, right? It needs to be, $250 or $299 in order to, to do all that work between the margin, right? And so I'd say that was a product that people liked that I couldn't afford to, keep on the market. Like it was one of those things where, well, can't do it. I know you're buying it, but it doesn't make me any money to do it, right? So I had to stop that. As far as playing failures, man, if you play golf long enough, you've got tons of those. So I think I'll spare you with that. But one good
How about
story,
just like career failures would be sort of interesting, I think. Cause
so one story, I'm playing in the Canadian Masters, and I'm playing with a guy named Roger Wessels, who Roger at the time was, I don't know why he got an exemption to play in the Canadian Masters. Maybe he wanted to visit Toronto. I don't know why he came over, but he was a European Tour player, South African guy, really good player. And so, now on the tee, Roger Wessels, and it's a good golf course. I think Mike Weir won that tournament. Anyway, Roger hits a good 3-wood down there, probably 250, and then it's like a short iron onto the green. And so on the tee from Toronto, Ontario, and naturally I get some applause because it's a local event, Martin Chuck. So I step up, do my routine, step up, and I literally heel top one, like skitter it off the front of the tee. It catches the wet, dewy, thick rough, and there I am, like, I mean it, like 60 yards off the tee.
Oh my gosh.
In this miserable, clumpy rough, and people are like aghast. Like it was like the funniest thing. Like they didn't know what to think. Here's this guy who's supposed to be an okay player, just like top one off the tee. And then, so I'm able to go down there and I kind of hack it in the fairway. I knock it on the green and I make a par.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so it's one of those things where I always tell golfers, and this is a story a Mike Malaska story that is the best.
I think I know what you're going to say. This is great.
You know the story?
Yeah, I think so.
And I want to say, I'm trying to think of the pro to give his pro credit.
Yeah.
He was an old pro from Phoenix, but the guy takes Mike out and drops Mike at a variety of places and says, let's see what you can shoot if I kind of set you up on every hole. So he sets him up all over the place, side hill, obscured behind a tree. Right. And basically, Malaska's like, well, I can fit it around. I can get under that limb. I can curve it. And so sure enough, I think Mike said he shot par, and this guy put him like in 9 bizarre spots, excluding the par 3s. Right.
Right.
And so now the coach says to Mike Malaska, think about that. Okay. You just played pretty darn nicely, and I put you in terrible spots off the tee. How would your mindset have been had you have hit those tee shots? Right.
Yeah.
And so, and that's
they'd been pissed, right? Yeah.
Oh man, so mad.
That's a great story to tell,
right?
Students and to do. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's sort of why I still play to this day. Like I'll still go play in a section event even though I'm not really prepared, because I don't care. I know I can still sort of hit it. I know that I'm going to hit it. I'm going to have my episodes of 3 or 4 holes of, man, you kind of look like you know what you're doing. Then I'm gonna have my couple holes of, I hope I get to hit it again, right? And then if you look at every hole, like, okay, what's this adventure going to be? It might be a venture of just kind of being in the fairway and on the green in a 2-putt or a birdie, or it might be a venture of, okay, a block to the right rough with the tree sort of in the way, and then it's okay, then how do I? And so that Mike Malaska story shared, I don't know when I heard it, but I loved it. Yeah. And I try to live that when I play golf, and 2, I try to make people aware, like, hey, this game this is a crazy adventure, and if you think you're going to just pop it down the middle and on the green every day, crazy. Mind you, some of the gals that play in the LPGA Tour are so good that that's literally how they play, but most of the men aren't, because they have a bit more speed. They hit it on the heel, they hit it on the toe, the ball curves, and let's face it, it's an adventure. And the more you embrace the adventure, the more you're prepared for the stuff that's going to come at you.
Absolutely. Right? I thought you were going to tell the story. Did he tell you the one where I think it was him as a player when he was still trying to play, and whoever he was working with, his coach, and he, I guess, was so nervous going to the first tee in maybe it was a tour event or a big mini tour event, and the guy told him, said, "Go ahead and just top it."
Right.
Yeah, that was the coolest. He told that in the midst of that story you just told the listeners, which was cool. But he basically was just saying, Just go ahead and top it. And he's like, what? Are you crazy? He goes, just go ahead and top it. So literally he topped it on purpose. And he said he kind of hacked it out, got up on green, made par. But I guess the moral of the story was, you think you're going to top it already. Like, yeah, that's your mindset when you're that nervous. So just go ahead and get it out of the way.
Yeah.
And then he went out and played pretty good.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I tell you what, Mike's a very, very good player. And
yeah, he is.
He's just he's a hell of a spokesman for the game of golf and fitness and all those things. So no, he's one of the best.
Absolutely. All right, next question. Another kind of fun one is a little personal, but I always like to ask is, what is an unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love?
Oh, an absurd thing that I love. I still play men's league hockey. So,
oh, really? Okay.
I'm 50 years old, and I still put the skates on once a week, and I feel like just maybe I'll get drafted. Like, I know I could play third line for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maybe. No, I don't know. I still, like I told you about being a band geek, I still play harmonica, because that's easy. I keep one in my car. A habit.
That's cool.
I like being like the first person up in the morning with nobody awake. Just to, I preset the coffee machine. I get up like about 45 minutes before my wife or kids have to get up, and I sit on the couch. I turn on usually the Golf Channel like a complete geek, and I'll just go through my email and kind of see what my day is going to set up like, and I enjoy my cup of coffee, and that's kind of like my morning wake-up routine. Like, it's just me and the quiet dogs and my cup of coffee and my computer, and then a creature will stir, like when my daughter or my son will come out of the room, and then it's the busyness of the day. Lunch is ready for school, and running around and getting ready, and always being 2 minutes late out the door, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So that morning little ritual of that's great. Goofy stuff, man. I'm not trying to hold back on you.
No, that's okay. That's good. I mean, I always like to know morning routines.
Yeah.
Like, does that happen every morning? Like,
every morning.
That's something that has to happen for you to have like a successful day in your mind.
It's not like that's what makes the day, but it's
just get you started.
It's a stock day. Yeah, I'm gonna get up before everybody else and just have a chill moment on the couch, kind of get my head right, look at who I'm gonna see that day, and then that's it. I'll tell you what. One little ritual I have is when I park my car at the course, at the Raven, right? Like, my last moment before I open my door, it's like I kind of give myself a little pep talk. I'm like, okay, it's showtime. Let's go.
I like it.
Like, literally
internal self-talk.
Totally. Because they don't, like, a lot of my students, it's the first time I'm meeting them.
Right.
They're vacationing golfers, golf school vacation. Some executive guy watched me online. He's like, oh, that Martin seems like a nice guy. When I'm through Phoenix, I'm going to spend a half an hour or a half a day with them, or an hour or two, or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So I look at it like every day showtime. When I get out of the car, I'm not going to bring you my B game, okay? My golf game might be my B game, but my coaching game, I'm going to do my damnedest to make it my A game. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah. We're always on stage, man.
That pep talk is like that's my little freaky thing. And there's a funny little, my buddy David Woods, you probably know David at the Vintage Club. David just sent me this meme of this little kid who's like a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, who is like a freaky fan. Like, he just gets so excited, like he's boiling over with excitement, right? So it's like a 3-second clip of this kid going off, and he's like 2, like so pumped, like, and so that kind of visual is like, okay, it's showtime, let's go. And not to where you're going to be a freak and like be so over-energized. The person's like, okay, simmer down. But you got to pump yourself up to give your best that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember those golf school days when I was at Dana's, and you gotta bring it, man. You can't, even if you're feeling bad or you've had a rough evening or didn't get enough sleep, you gotta somehow find the energy to give that person your best.
Missed a lesson because of illness. Now, I probably have killed a couple because when they left me, they had a plague. But I've never. In fact, here's a funny one for you. I did a golf school with 30 people. Okay, it was Foley, Martin Hall, and myself. It was at the Waldorf in Orlando 2 years ago, and it was a big deal because it was like one of the first Revolution golf schools that was with the Golf Channel. Okay, and so it was Sean Foley. I think it might have been his first one he did with us, and then Martin Hall. And so I'm the guy who always did these little golf schools, but it wasn't a big production like this one, okay? And then we had to do a bit of TV stuff on, for the Golf Channel. And I am dying. I mean, I am literally dying. If it wasn't that, I would have said, I can't do it. I'm dying. I can't come. And so I sucked it up. I, flew to Orlando. I went to like Walgreens and got the mentholatum rub, put it in a pot, steamed my face up so I could breathe, took every kind of drug I could possibly take. I could hardly talk. Into that morning, it's like Sean's looking at me like a bit of a deer in the headlights. Like, he's a great storyteller and an awesome coach.
Yeah.
But they weren't used to that scene, you know what I mean? So I'm the one who's like, bringing everybody in, doing the welcome intro, and I could hardly talk.
Oh, man.
But you just do it.
Yeah.
Right? And you get her done. The show must go on, man. And no, that was something.
That's awesome.
That was a crazy one.
Well,
yeah.
well, I know you're a super fit guy. I know you're into working out and nutrition. So talk a little bit about that. What's your sort of daily routine? Because I think, we're the same age now, and I know I found out sort of, late 20s, early 30s that I better get in shape and, to have the energy to put out the product that we're putting out on the daily and to teach as much. So talk a little bit about what you've done and some of your habits.
Yeah. So I think I'm a fan of breakfast. So I'm not naturally these days with the keto diet and the low carb stuff. So I am sort of a low carb guy.
Yeah, that's me.
If I'm at some place where I absolutely have to eat a sandwich, I will. But by and large, like, I haven't had a loaf of bread like cumulatively in years now.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's basically, and I'm not a complete freak about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's always certain times where you just have to have it, or you just
right. But I'm pretty much try to keep the carbs to a minimum, and then. The men's league hockey is a great workout. Got to be honest, I've had the same trainer. Like, I physically have a trainer that I go see at least once a week who kicks my hiney, right? So I do that, and because if I go on to the gym on my own, I'm bored. I can't. Maybe I'm not, and I'm the self-discipline to do it myself. So I go pay a guy, the same guy, who has been beating me up. And when I say beat up, I love the workout. It's different every week. I'm gassed at the end. After a shower, I feel great. I don't get sore anymore. Like, years ago, I used to get sore because it was, when I was a club pro, I started putting on a bit of weight. Nothing crazy, but just a bit of weight. And it was because of the club pro job, GM job. I mean, I was at a desk looking at spreadsheets and looking at staff stuff and looking at a lot of forecasting and planning and, those kind of things. And now on the lesson tee, I love it because that's sort of a diet. When you're standing on your feet.
Yeah, we're moving around.
7 or 8. Yeah, you're. The only sitting down I do is a quick lunch. The golf school lunch is a bit more of a peaceful, 1 hour lunch. But, the only sitting I'm really doing is if I'm, sitting in front of the JC or in front of the gears for the moment. But usually I'm up, right? So to me, I think just that active lifestyle I have a golf club in my hands most of the day, and that little bit of physical activity and just watching the diet. I think
sure.
I think guys our age that are stuck are the ones that are just. Unfortunately, their job dictates that they're sitting most of the time. And I would say, man, if you could get one of those stand-up work desks, that would be huge.
Yeah, that's what I went to with our video and TrackMan. Is a stand-up, so I can't sit down. I mean, sometimes sometimes you just got to do it, but I mean, it's for the most part, if you're up, you're not gonna, get comfortable and your back hurts and everything else. At least you're moving around, stretching a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean that would be my, nothing too crazy. I mean, it's just a little bit of diet, stay as active naturally as you can, and hopefully you still fit in your pants, right?
There you go. So when you get stressed out or maybe you feel overwhelmed as we get in this business, what do you do? You got any tactics or go-tos?
Oh man, I tell you, I used to have, my stress came when I was a club pro. I was a club pro for 16 years. I taught a lot, but I was, those, I didn't like disappointing members. Like, that sucked. I felt, if an event didn't go well, if I didn't plan something properly, and unfortunately things maybe through my team, there was somebody on the staff dropped the ball. That was a stressor for me. The men's member guest, the ladies member guest. Now, as I got a bit more experienced, I started to realize, hey, you can cover your bases. You can't really, you don't know, something might come at you from left field, but by and large, when you get better at that, the stress tends to go away. Um, the exercise is good for stress.
Sure.
I find that when I get with the guys and we have a good hockey game and a good skate, that's a stress reliever. Naturally, the working out.
Mm-hmm.
Getting out and playing a little bit of golf is a stress reliever for me.
Yeah.
And I don't associate my being with my score. Like last year, I had a 64 and I had an 82, right? And so I had everything between those. And the 64 was a great surprise, and the 82 I was like, dang, what was that? But that's golf, and I try not to say, no matter how I play, my kids are going to love me. My dog doesn't care, right? So,
Yeah.
I had enjoyed a nice Heineken on this talk with you.
Yes.
Right? And I look at it like I try to live life every time I go to bed at night. Like I literally have a moment and I say, God, thank you for the day. I am massively grateful for the opportunity, and I'll do good tomorrow. So it's like,
I love it.
I'm not a big religious guy, but I tell you what, when you live in gratitude,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're thankful, man, good things tend to happen for you.
Yeah, I started, and we've talked about this a lot. That question seems to lead towards mindfulness or meditation. I've started dabbling a little bit in that just to sort of quiet the mind. And have you ever tried that at all? Or more? There's different forms of meditation, and what you're doing is a form, right? I mean, it's basically getting quiet. Whether you're praying or getting with the Lord or just being grateful. I think it's super important.
And so I'll is weird. This sounds kind of weird. Like if I'm coaching and say you're my student, I may close my eyes for 25 seconds. Okay. And if you don't know me, you might think I'm nuts. Okay. But when my eyes are closed, okay, I can see things better.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So my eyes are closed and I might be moving your hands or moving your wrists, or I might be kind of manipulating your shoulders a bit. And I'm talking with my eyes closed. That's one distraction gone. So my words can be a little bit more precise. I can still kind of feel where your shoulders need to be. I can still kind of feel where your wrists need to be, right? And so taking away one of those things and just, like you said, mindfulness is just kind of looking inward to say, okay, how do I best describe this to this particular person in front of me in a language he or she can understand that may be sticky, right? And if you're looking at some dude with his eyes closed, that's a sticky moment because you think he's part crazy, and you'll remember that.
Absolutely. That's why you're such a great coach, man. That is gold right there. I'm telling you. All right, last one. This is a biggie. All right, if you had a giant billboard, and you could put anything on it, a mantra, a quote, a saying, life lesson that would get out to billions of people, what would it be and why?
Oh man, okay. A life lesson. It's the it'd go back to what I just said, and I don't want to go on an easy one, but it would say, when you lay your head down, no matter what your life situation is, it could be worse. And so if you live in gratitude, and you're generally kind to people, I mean, man, things are good, and little things like I do. Like I think I'm going to win some award one day. Like somebody's going to blow a trumpet and run up with like a TV cameras and a big check because I pick up trash. Okay, I'm a trash picker upper. If I'm walking to my car from wherever I am, it doesn't even have to be the golf course. It can be like a random mall, and I'm not going to go clean the whole parking lot. But if I'm going from A to B somewhere and without 85 steps on my way to B, I'm going to pick up a cup, or I'm going to pick up a bag of garbage, or I'm going to pick something up and put it in a trash can wherever I am.
Yes.
Okay, because I know somewhere Publishers Clearinghouse is going to come up and give me a check. No, but I mean, just silly things like do something, make your environment, make things a little better for somebody else.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
I'm a door opener. Like I'm
go.
I'm kind of obsessive about making sure I open doors for people.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's just a little thing. It doesn't take much to be kind.
There you go.
Man.
You know, and if I could be a police officer for a day, you know what I would do? I'd write the biggest tickets you could possibly write for those people that throw cigarette butts out their window.
Yeah.
That would be my pet peeve. Yeah.
I love it, man. Well, that's a great way to close, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Great to hang out, and I look forward to seeing you when our paths cross next time.
Absolutely.
Wherever that is.
Yep. You coming to Pinehurst for the Top 100?
November 11th, 12th, or 10th, 11th. Yeah, I can't wait.
Awesome.
Yeah,
we'll definitely hang out and talk some more. So,
Dynamite.
So let the listeners know how they can follow you, get a hold of you, buy your products, give them your website and all your platforms on social.
Sure. So tourstriker.com, that's my website, and then Instagram has been fun for me as an old guy, kind of getting into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Tour Striker Golf. And what else? I guess, weekly tip on Revolution Golf, and you ask a question on there, I'll get back to you. So, yeah, good fun.
Awesome, man. Well, anything that I haven't asked you, or any parting words before we close?
You know, not really. It's been great talking to you, and I just, golf is a game that, is meant to be played, right? And I think for those young coaches out there, the more you can drag somebody out on the golf course, get them on the golf course for a hole or two, and teach people routine, teach people how to breathe, teach people how to accept where the ball goes, and enjoy just the randomness of the game. And it's not a perfect game, like Bob Rotella said. It's
Right.
not a game of perfect, and just embrace just the wild nature of it. Because if you can do that, those few holes that are kind of peaceful, you won't be freaked out when it gets crazy again. So that's my
try to bring everybody into their 14-year-old self, right?
You know it. That's right. You gotta make my team.
That's right. I love it, man. You're awesome, buddy. You're the best, and I can't thank you enough.
My pleasure, buddy. You take care.
All right, you too. What's up, everybody? Guru back here again with a couple of things before you jump off. First, big thank you to Martin for coming on the show and sharing his story and all his great stories about the legends out there in the game and his coaching and his incredible knowledge about teaching in life that I know will help you all become better coaches and just better human beings. Make sure to follow Martin on the gram and Twitter at TourStrikerGolf, and check out his website at tourstriker.com and go buy one of his awesome training aids. Thanks once again to our sponsors, invidhemp.com. Make sure you go use the promo code GURU20 for a 20% discount for life, which is super cool. And to Hack Motion Wrist Sensor training aid, one of the best and new training aids on the market out there. So go check that out as well. You can follow and reach me on Twitter and the gram. If you're not following me, what is going on? I'm at Golf Guru TV. At Golf Guru TV. Make sure you go to the App Store and download the Golf Guru app. For you golfers out there that want to get better, check it out. Also, check out my website, golfgurutv.net, where you can find videos, articles, and more information on my teaching and coaching. And if you have a question or comment about the show, email me at golfgurushow@gmail.com or hit me up on the DM. We're still compiling questions for the next Guru or Ask the Guru mailbag with me and my staff, Robbie Fales and Seth Mers. So send in your questions. That one will be coming up very, very soon. We've already got some good ones already. This show and all episodes of the Golf Guru Show were produced by myself, Jason Sutton. Music is by Zach Mullet. And leave me an iTunes review or a rating. That would be cool. Thank you for all of you that have already done that. Give me a 5-star review. That would be cool to move up the charts a little bit. And then as I leave you with, as always, make sure you study, make sure you practice, and make sure you teach. And then most importantly, pass it on. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.